Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 23rd Conservation Meeting. I'd like to remind everybody this is being taped. So at this point, I'd like to take roll call.
Leah Whiting,
That's more.
Susan Fernandez,
Bob Sweet.
Mike Amanda.
Isabella Genova, agent.
Okay, there are no public hearings, so tonight's agenda has to do with interviews for positions open on conservation. So at this point, I'd like to invite anybody that's interested in being a member of the conservation to step up.
Very good.
Yeah, you guys got to step down, right?
Am I in the appropriate location? I think so.
Get to sit over here.
How you doing?
Steve, Carl, Steve,
Steve Carlstrom, yeah.
Leah, Carl, Steve. Evening. So,
Just in case you think of running away, we have two people tonight.
Okay.
so why don't we start the process by, introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what your thoughts are for the conservation and what your goals are to achieve cohesiveness with the rest of the board.
Okay. Well, my name's Steve Carlstrom. I live up the street at 90 North Ave. Moved here, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. Love the town. I'd love to find a way to serve the town. And I've been in construction since 98. I'm a civil engineer. I've dealt a lot with conservation type issues on projects throughout my years. I'd like to see the town preserved. I'd like to see it handled appropriately for whatever expansion there is and that it's taken seriously.
Either one of the other candidates like to add anything?
I'll go first.
yeah, absolutely.
Carl Hummel, 15 Misco Road. I served on the Conservation Commission for a little over a decade. I was chair for a couple of years and I'm now serving as vice chair. I was asked to volunteer because when I moved into town, they were just expanding up from 5-member board to 7 members. And I bought 13 acres of conservation land. And they felt that my ability as a homeowner who had conservation land, that was an interesting perspective to bring onto the Concom. Since then, what I've been focusing on is trying to thread the balance between having conservation happen in the town without being an unfair or an undue burden on the actual residents. When there are people who are contractors, or if there are large developments, then we want to be very careful and rigorous in the process. But whenever we have a homeowner, my goal is to try and work with them and not only educate them, but accommodate with them and work with them to preserve conservation as well as letting them do what they want with their own property.
Okay, sorry. I'm a nervous Nelly, so I wrote things down. I've been on the Conservation Commission for 2 years. I am a conservationist at heart, everything I do. I put that visor on. I know about plants and all the creatures and how they work within the ecology. I hope I've been helpful on site walks doing that. I know about organic and inorganic chemicals. If I don't know a particular formula, because there's a zillion of them out there, I knew enough to research it. Speaking of chemicals, one of my main goals is to educate Mendon residents on the use of escars and why secondary rodenticide poisoning is so bad to our animals. I know how to read and assess farm plans and forestry plans. I have made every single meeting, and I've made probably 85% of the site walks. I'm always up for a site walk and my schedule is flexible, so I tend to make a lot of them. Don't have any conflicts of interest. And all my notes I make here are with the thought of what the residents of Mendon want. Also about the ecology and how it will impact them. Even the squirrels, which I've stripped every single fruit tree in my yard. But it's a tough year for them, so it's okay. The oath I took when I joined the commission was something I take very seriously. And as a commissioner, I am tasked with protecting our natural resources, of course, guided by the Wetlands Protection Act. And I'm also involved with Terry, who's spearheading the Muddy Brook Trail project. And I think that's important for a zillion reasons. But one of the other things that I feel is important is that as commissioners, that we're here to educate people on how conservation works and how it begins bit that everyone does is important. So I feel like I could list other things, but I feel like that's enough. My minute is over. Thank you.
So at this point, I'll open it up to the members. Do any of the members have any questions for any of the candidates?
I seek a little guidance from our personnel representative. We have two incumbents and we have an individual who has not served on the board previously. It's
Thank you for stepping up.
normal
Sure.
practice to try to ask the same types of questions of each individual, but there are people with experience and people that don't. And what I wanted to ask the two incumbents is basically if there are areas that they see that the commission's activities or actions could be improved. And for the newer applicant, how he might envision the commission looking like in the future with regard to its statutory role.
So I think as long as the questions are in the same vein, it will be fine. But not to ask all the candidates the same question would be inappropriate. So maybe you could ask them all the same question and then add to the newer member the other part you want to do.
Okay, that's fine. Did you hear my question?
Yes.
Well, okay, I'll start. We've pretty much started working on what I thought was the biggest gap in that we are now engaged with an outside consulting firm on drafting regulations. We were able to successfully update our wetland protection bylaw. But now that that's done, we were going to be able to have a set of regulations that will describe how Isabella and the other town staff will conduct day-to-day operations. So I think that's a big thing that we're going to be, a big gap that we're going to be closing.
I believe in forward motion, and I think as a team, I do think we are a team. If we all have our little spots where our wheelhouses are, I think we are making forward motion, like Carl said, with the regulations. And just want to say our last meeting when we all came together was, it was kind of synergy. It doesn't happen often, but I thought we did a really good job at our last meeting, coming together as one, as the Conservation Commission. So I just want to see forward motion, and I think we are making that. There's always room for improvement, but we're on it.
Okay, I guess as the new guy, it's nice to hear that that type of progress is made where everyone can have a full understanding of what the rules and limitations and what the expectations are. live my life at work by specifications and drawings. And so that's all what I deal with on a regular basis. As far as what you were saying, as far as going forward, the reason that we love this town so much is what it is, and to keep it somewhat in that way as opposed to mass development. Progress is always going to happen. It's just at what pace. So that would be my concern in the future, is limiting, but not limiting too much. Did that answer your question?
Any other questions?
I'll ask one, that kind of sort of could apply, to the new and the incumbents as well. Any success stories that you'd like to elaborate on, as to, bringing everything together from regulations to the applicants, and anything that's been brought in that's new, or improved upon, and, that you could kind of, incumbents get into that with their experience here, and then anything that you've seen on the outside, like working in front of a commission and whatnot as well. If you have any,
I don't have any experience being on a commission or working with
I mean,
a commission, if
so
that's what your question is.
So in your job, you don't, go and.
No, I'm the guy, I do survey, layout, as-built, I'm superintendent,
Oh, okay.
so I'm in the field. Okay, this is where we cut a line, and making sure that the tree clearer does things appropriately. And, if there's endangered species, turtles, salamanders, whatever the case may be, that you do regular environmental walks. Is all of the hay line intact? Is there any silting damage? Is there, and then making appropriate repairs if needed. So that's my experience with it, besides hiking on trails or building my own garden or whatever the case may be with that. Did that answer what you were? Somewhat.
Yeah, I just thought that you said that you've dealt with a lot of conservation issues when you at your job, so.
Well, that's how I meant it.
Oh,
If I misrepresented that,
Oh, no, no.
that's,
I get it.
I guess this is to all three and.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, was that question just for me, or was that?
No, well,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's like, yeah, from like I sort of specified, and then from the outside, working with the commissions.
me first.
You can go.
Okay. I'm going to hold up 23 Cape Road as a success that we just completed in fact, we're going to be reviewing the minutes with it. That was a very, very troublesome site. We had a lot of problems with it.
And it lingered on for a long time.
Problems before I got on the commission, during the commission. We had no staff when that proposal first came forward, so we had to leverage the planning board. But once Isabella came on, we had the staff and the ability to start conducting oversight. We went from having a crowd in the other conference room across the street of a whole lot of very angry citizens about the warehouse project. And then during the actual building, the neighbors were complaining about flooding, but we were able to work with Blue Water, the site management team, and it was good for the town. One of the things that Jeremy said at town meeting last year was the tax revenue from that one building coming online funded a whole lot of stuff and was responsible for the town being in as good a fiscal shape as it is. So I'll look and say that's an example of, yeah, we had growth. It was in a very controlled fashion, and we seem to have kept a handle. And it's now, even though there's a big building there, in terms of conservation management and stormwater, it's a whole lot better than it used to be.
I just think that we make baby steps every time we get together. Now when we have applicants come in, sometimes it's not the greatest situations, but everyone is being treated fairly. Everyone is being treated the same. As a group, and especially with Isabella's guidance, we have been able to really streamline things, and we're making progress. And I think that I agree with Carl about the homeowner thing. We're not here to, penalize homeowners, but when we have people that are in the development industry that haven't exactly followed the the plan, that we know what to do, and we make it work, and we're fair, and it's been good growth. So forward motion, good growth.
Here,
At our last meeting, and I think it was the first time in the history of this commission, we imposed a fine, a penalty on a developer who didn't do what they were supposed to do. So I guess what's your feelings about when and if a fine is appropriate?
Leah, why don't you start?
Excuse me. There's a good blueprint that every applicant gets. That applicant got an NOI that was 54 pages long. I don't think he read the first page. Everything that could have been done wrong was done wrong. It was egregious. It was priority habitat. It was an NHESP site. And when it comes to things like that, I think that the fine was warranted. And we didn't go hard on them. We all came to a nice compromise. And I think that that's the first case where I think we probably needed to.
Well, I'm a very kind of right and wrong kind of guy. And rules are set in place for reasons and for protections. Now, mistakes happen. People don't necessarily know they've made a mistake all the time, but then there are also people who do it on purpose and try to get away with things. And those types of cases, the old adage of hitting somebody in the wallet is what makes somebody learn a lesson a lot of times. And I've seen that in my life multiple times, personally and professionally. I don't know the instance in which you're speaking about, but that's the whole reason that you have a board, that it's not just one person deciding something, and that everybody can come to a consensus that what the applicable, say punishment should be, if at all.
The problem with an enforcement action is that you have to be very careful to just look at the individual circumstance at that individual time. You really should not be unduly influenced by whether that particular company or site has had issues in the past. You shouldn't try and make an example of someone because their conduct was egregious in a particular way. But I think that as Mendon professionalizes its town hall, its municipal staff, and its municipal services, we can't rely on, well, there's 2,500 people in town, so we'll quietly do things behind the scenes and things will work out. We're now larger, we have a much bigger professional workforce. So we're going to unfortunately have to start sliding towards fining people when they are not paying attention to what they're supposed to. One of the reasons why we have civilian members on the board volunteering as opposed to paid staff is we are the buffer between citizens and actual application of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Mendon bylaw. So we have some flexibility, but we need to be very careful to balance that against not being too punishing on any particular person and not giving not allowing a particular parcel to have improper conservation things happening.
Do you have any questions?
I had one. I'm interested in your willingness for continued education or interest in continued education. So there's a nonprofit, the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, which has a fundamentals program. And those are offered at night, so kind of flexible depending, and they're online. So, and then there's other lunch and learns and different things that you can sign on during the day. So, also interest in learning wetland plants and wetland soils and becoming more familiar with those things. So to all three of you, kind of what's your interest in continuing education?
I'll go first this time. I've taken the MACC fundamentals. I've been to a bunch of conferences with various other members of the board. We had a lunch and learn just earlier this past week about something very in front of us, how to deal with farms that I attended.
Farming in the wetlands.
What farmers are allowed to do and what they need to request permission to do. So I attended that and pinged Isabella. So, hey, this is relevant to some of the things that we're now looking at. So I've also been spending our training money and I've been working to make sure that we have a training budget and that new members are able to get that kind of training.
Should I go next?
Yep.
Well, I would have a lot to learn about that. I would love to do that. There's things I do know, but I'm sure there's plenty I don't know.
You know how to read a site plan. That's a big part of the training.
Okay. But you know, I've dealt with certain things like, you know, you have to recreating wetlands on a job for, you know, a drainage swale or, you know, there's one thing that comes to mind. There was a rail trail job in Concord, and because it disturbed habitat, we had to build an area that had a sand area for turtles and a thicket for certain types of birds. And, you know, there's like 4 or 5 different, you know, playgrounds, I guess you could call them, for recreating habitat for the displaced animals. As far as timing is concerned, you know, I have a regular job. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to Rhode Island. So, but being on, as long as being online, that's relatively easy. And I only sleep 5 hours a night anyway, so.
I've only been here 2 years, so Carl's taken way more courses than I have. But I've taken quite a few online courses. I've attended those things. And I love that there's a training budget because that just makes me, not that I wouldn't do it anyway, but it's just so much easier when there is a training budget. So anything I can get my hands on, any online courses, I'm there.
Have anything, Mike? I have a question. With all the ways that you can attend a meeting now, Zoom, in person, whatnot, and with the rules that we have, that if you miss 2 meetings, you can't vote on that project. If you miss 4, then you have reasons for being dismissed. Is there any reason why making the meetings would be a problem for any of you?
I haven't missed any meetings, so.
The only reason for me is if I get shifted to working at night, but I don't see that happening. I've done a lot of night work in my past, but my current company doesn't really require it.
No, I don't have trouble attending. The only meetings that I've missed is when I've been too sick to actually sit at a computer. Otherwise I can Teams in from. Set up.
I think you have Teams in when you were sick.
Yeah, yes.
Well,
Thank you.
there's when I'm sick and coughing, and then sitting up hurts, so I'm just.
Or I just had knee surgery and I'm.
No, like I said, I mean, it really is problematic when, you know, there's
Yes.
4 people that show up and one missed 2 meetings, so technically they're not supposed to vote, because at that point, we don't have a quorum for that particular topic.
Well, and to me, meeting in person whenever possible, as opposed to something online is very important because there's a dynamic that's there that's not as present.
I do think the
Otherwise.
online stuff is good if you're sick, you know what I mean? You
Oh,
can-
yeah, I wouldn't say drag in here because you feel like crap. I would
If you
never
don't
say
have a
that.
quorum, we're calling you.
Right.
And we'll just sit you up in a chair and you can nod and. all
That itself presents a good possibility when it didn't for a very long time.
Yeah, or if you're gonna visit, just let everybody know, you know, I'm gonna be on vacation, or I just had.
Yeah.
surgery.
Yep. There's always something going on.
So I'm hung up on a job.
One word, communication.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's more applicable to if people just blow it off and don't say it. That should be, then they should be penalized, but if you let people know for a good reason, that's fine.
Terry?
Yeah, this is not to suggest that you lack the right to do what I'm about to ask you a question. But you're going to be here for 3 years. Do any of you anticipate that you may become applicants or represent applicants before the commission?
I don't think so. I might be in a butter at some point, but I don't think I'm gonna be doing anything to my yard.
Just following up on Bob's question, which would result in abstentions, should we?
You talking about a conflict of interest is what you mean?
Well, whether you are representing someone or have working for someone who has an application before commission.
I don't have a job that ties into conservation at all.
I don't work for other companies. I'm going to be having something come in the next couple of months. We're building a 10 by 20 shed for my child-in-law to have a workshop for their family business. And unfortunately, it's just on the edge of the buffer zone, so we need to pull down a bunch of trees. But we have a well-established recusal policy for that. When Bongo is talking with the commission about the RDA, I'll be sitting in the audience and not deliberating.
Yeah, you're always good about that.
What's the business?
They make art things that they sell at craft fairs and trade shows, oddity
Like
fairs.
pottery?
Wood, 3D wood art.
Oh, cool.
So they have a laser printer and lots of woodworking equipment.
That sounds cool.
Any other questions? Would, no, if you have a question,
Well, I was
but
just kind of thinking of one, but. That's a phrase out of that phrase.
I have one more. We've had quite a few CRs in the past, conservation restrictions in the past few years, and a lot of outside interest in town. Other holders who frequently help assist the town in purchases are Department of Fish and Wildlife, the trustees of reservations, Metacomet Land Trust, and Mass Audubon and the Nature Conservancy. So I think we've closed on 2 or 3 in the last few years, and millions of dollars coming through to buy these properties. So I'm curious if there's any properties in Mendon that you would want to target for preservation, and your familiarity or interest hiking on trails, and how much you use conservation land yourself.
I live right near the Cormier Woods. It's in my backyard. So I've frequented that a lot. I'm happy to volunteer and help out with any CRs that we have. And the more the merrier. I think it's the right thing to do to conserve land that's high priority land for the ecology. So I'm all for it, absolutely.
besides working on my house and working around my house and going to work and taking care of my family, I don't get out in the woods very much, although I'd like to. Like I've said before, I don't know anything specifically about the conservation land in and around town. I do know the one that is the farm that was taken care of in the past couple of years. It's like basically directly across the street from me, where, you know, I love waking up to the view of the valley every morning. It's gorgeous. And also, like I've said, there's development, but careful development. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
Well, I'll agree wholeheartedly with you. The valley between North Avenue and Hopedale,
Beautiful.
that's one of the
That sold us on our house.
that's one of the things that makes Mendon different from any other town, and it was one of the big draws. Now, there's a minority of people in town who think that the best way to reduce property taxes is to go in there and turn it into mixed industrial, commercial, residential subdivisions in there, because, you know, all of that open space, and I'm saying, I don't support that, and we'll see how that works out. In terms of the actual conservation restrictions, I've been very active with working with Metacomet and the state people on the language, where they send out a Microsoft Word draft. I send in back my markups. They incorporate them or say, no, you don't know what you're talking about, and going back and forth with that. So I've been happy to participate in the review process for CRs. In terms of hiking, I do a lot of hiking in North Mendon, around where my house is, and the middle school. It's one of the reasons why I was concerned about the logging that was happening up on North Avenue. That was, we'll get to that parcel eventually. And at the end of Misco Hill, Sudbury Valley Land Trust just bought there's a little tiny part of it that's in Mendon. It's now their housing envelope, but the vast majority of it is in Upton, which is why we haven't heard about that. And it's Sudbury and the Mendon and the Upton committees worked on that particular purchase. But I've let them know, hey, I'm on the road. When you start looking for a steward for that parcel, or when you're going to start looking on trails, that I'm on their directory.
Which property when you get to the top of the hill, right or left? I'm just curious.
Kim's Way goes to the right. You keep going to the left, and it's the one where the beehive is. It's all the way at the end.
There's a small pond back there.
Probably. I don't know what you're thinking of.
Oh.
So hiking, yes.
Did you have that question?
Oh, I have a part of my consulting job is dealing with climate resilience and whatnot. And I was just curious if anybody here had any ideas how we could start incorporating or educating the public about the importance of the riverine systems and the wetlands and climate resilience and whatnot. It's not really a technical question, but
I will see if I can get you an answer to that. Would anybody like to comment on that?
I'll go. You want to go first this time? Okay.
What I do every day is sustainability. I grow organic, sustainable crops. No chemicals, nothing. I have as many people who do work outside. I work outside all day until the sun goes down. And I see climate change on the grassroots level. Like I'm very intuitive, and I can see when we're going to have a drought, way before we have a drought. But I think one of my main things, as I was saying before, is to educate people on conservation, but sustainability goes hand in hand with conservation. And I try to do that in my everyday life. I have a water catchment system. I can hold 1,300 gallons. I recycle and reuse everything I possibly can. And I think if we all did our little part, You know, I have solar panels, I have hybrid, appliances, you know, if we all did our part, I think it would go a long way.
Carl, I'm gonna let you go and then I'll let Steve finish.
My elevator speech with this one, when people talk about it, is anthropo global warming caused by humans, something. Anthropogenic, yeah. That's gotten to be a very hot political issue. And so I try and not talk about that. Instead, I try and redirect the conversation to climate change. There is no arguing that the growing season has changed. My wife, for our first year here, looked at 1980 books and planted it,
In five.
and
Now we're 6.
you have to wait. The growing cycle has changed. We are now looking at stormwater reports and papers, and we are now seeing 500-year floods. We are seeing 100-year floods. I'm seeing 50-year floods. We're seeing very significant rain events. We're seeing much drier and hotter droughts. So yes, that is an issue, and the best way to educate people is to try and get them to focus on what is happening in your backyard and not what the talking heads on TV are babbling about.
Grassroots, yeah.
That's a very good point all around.
Well said.
Well, similar to you, I started a few years ago looking into, what we buy and what we eat and all that. And I've lost 70 pounds just doing different things. And one of which is I bake my own bread. I have a composter. I'm trying to grow a garden. That's a work in progress, but I'll make my own tomato sauce. I'll do, and again, I try, I recycle everything I can. My niece is doing a can drive right now. So I got 3 barrels of cans at home for her right now. This community being on the farming type level is a good place people should be a lot more receptive to those ideas, and that it can, like you said, see it every day, and it can affect your everyday life.
Well, thank you. If there are no more questions, then I'll ask for final statements.
Can I go first? Sorry, I kind
Go
of.
right ahead.
It's been a pleasure serving on the board with everyone. I hope at times I'm very passionate about the things that I know about. But I also listen, and I also have an open mind. And we all have our wheelhouses, and I think we are able to come together as a commission and make some really good decisions. So I hope you keep me here.
Thank you.
I'll go. So I know I don't necessarily know as much as everybody around here as far as rules, and regulations, and laws associated with things, but I'm always happy to learn, and I think I'm a quick study.
Well, the nice part is, like Isabella said, that there's training.
Yep.
None of us knew anything more
Yeah.
than.
You got to start somewhere.
And we always learn more.
Yep, I'm interested in signing up for another 3 years. Time for someone else to be vice chair, though.
I think you know too much.
I hear you say you're going for the chair. Yeah.
No, thanks.
Were you the chair before?
I was, yes.
Well, I thank the 3 of you for coming in and giving us the information that you did. The board will talk about it and make our decisions as necessary. Sure, you'll be hearing from us one way or another.
Well, we make a recommendation, it's the selectmen to make the decision, right?
Correct.
I'm ready.
Do we meet with the selectmen too, or no?
So it's
I don't know the procedure, so that's why.
it's my understanding that the commission will make a recommendation to the select board.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming at their August 5th meeting, they'll vote on
Okay.
the appointments.
Well, that's something you should be present for something
Yes. you should-
like this as well.
You should expect to go to the select board meeting. They will have their own questions. You should start,
I'm about to go away on vacation. It's only for.
starts at 6:30.
Yeah, and I don't know if it will be on the agenda. That's my assumption it will be for that meeting.
Oh, that's on a Saturday.
August 5th?
Oh, I thought you said 8th.
Oh,
Is that a Wednesday?
Okay, yeah, I am here that week.
6:30 here?
So,
I stuck my vacation right in the middle of the town.
so before I go back to my seat, is other board members going to deliberate on a recommendation?
that's how I understood it, that
We're gonna deliberate in front of everybody?
I would rather not deliberate in front of.
It's, you can't, it's.
No,
you can't go
if
into
it's time for me to go, that's fine with
no,
me.
it's an open meeting.
You can't go into executive session for this.
Well, then I'll,
Not sure how it works.
with the five of us.
I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
No, with the
No.
five of us, any recommendations? Jerry?
Well, I appreciate your interest and your, I think, obvious capabilities to learn and to be forthright in being a member of this particular commission. I've only been here a year,
Mhm.
but I have been impressed by the two people who are incumbents. So I think my recommendation would probably go in that direction. And I think there are probably so many other areas within the township that your background and disposition would be quite valuable.
Okay. So, I'll let you all talk, that's fine. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Steve.
Nice meeting you.
Peter?
Great candidates. Concern is that I think we're all, this committee is gone a little too green for the community. So it needs to be balanced, but I'll let the selectmen figure that out.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, exactly.
Too green meaning, we're going too deep into conservation, or we don't have enough skilled, opinion making?
It's not the skills and opinion making. It's just the impression that I think the committee has in town. So it's not what we do, it's how we do it. So it's more a question of personality.
How the committee's perceived?
No,
Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
where's this information coming from?
Excuse me?
Where's this information coming from? Just curious.
Oh, it's a
No, it's just my gut feel.
Right.
Oh, it's a gut
Personal.
feeling.
Gut feel.
Didn't know if you heard chatter and exactly what they were talking about or.
Well, nobody ever likes the Conservation Commission. But that's because we stop people from doing what they shouldn't be doing. And honestly, I have my opinions on that too. I mean, people own their land, they should be allowed to do what they want on it, but there are rules in place that need to be followed.
Regulations.
So when you tell somebody they can't do something with their land, they don't like hearing that. So, your recommendation?
My recommendation, I think the two incumbents have more knowledge than the newbie. But I don't think that should necessarily be, I don't know. So if I just had to I'll look for him to replace me. I'm ready to step down. I guess it's been a long time. So it's just needs some fresh blood as well. But I'm okay with the two incumbents.
Yeah, so I think, we have a pretty good team now. And I think that, it's still pretty, new, our new team is still pretty new. And we have some good cohesiveness. We're starting to understand, everybody's, failure, I'm not failure, strengths and, non-strengths and, everyone, I think, brings something to the table for the most part, as far as like technical knowledge and or this, that, or, I don't see any conflict of interests. So I'm gonna have to go with the incumbent and keep it the team as it is for now.
Mike? Okay. As you all know, I'm the senior member on this committee. I've been on it for, if not 40 years, pretty damn close. Okay? I've been served on this committee through the good days, bad days, fat days, skinny days. I think, Peter, you would be the next in line. You've served with me quite a few of those years. Peter and I are a very good example. Peter and I do not agree 100% on things, but we do agree to disagree. We've always
Without
been
being disagreeable.
We've always been looked at things and been fair, and we check each other. I'm fine with the two incumbents. Leah's done great. Carl's been excellent. I
Thanks,
pushed
Mike.
Carl into becoming a chairman years ago, like I pushed you into. Because again, the first 20 years of my service on this board, I served as chairman because nobody else wanted to do it. What I don't like is the fact that when we have an incumbent coming up for reappointment, that the powers to be want to throw something else into the mix.
Could you elaborate?
Well, Leah, you want to stay on the committee. I want you to stay on the committee.
Thanks, Mike.
Carl, do you want to stay on the committee?
Yes, that's why
I want you to stay on the committee. And why are we being thrown other,
See what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying?
Right. It should
That
be first
causes-
right of first refusal.
Exactly. That causes, can't think of the right
Well, it causes
terminology.
the turmoil
used,
that
but-
happened today. We invited
Exactly.
a person to come in. He spent his time here only to be refused.
Right. I have served on a number of committees in this town over the 45 years I've lived here. Because when I moved to Mendon, this was it for me. I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna give back to the community. The first day I walked into this place, I'm giving back to the community because this is my home now. All right. I just don't feel that the incumbents who want to serve should be competing. Peter just said he's thinking about, okay, calling it quits. He's going to retire. He's going to step aside. Okay, there's an opening. There's a legitimate opening.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem
I
with
agree
that.
with your thinking.
And it's happening across the board, not only with this committee, finance committee. I've served with some guys on the finance committee when this policy got enacted a couple of years ago. They felt insulted the same way I'm gonna feel insulted when I'm up for reappointment next year. I believe I have one more year left. That's my only gripe. I don't have a problem with anybody right now on this committee. I never had a problem with anybody on this committee, especially when I was chairman. Because the chairman controls the committee. To be a chairman, you gotta know your people, just like being a supervisor on a job. You gotta know your people, and put your people in the right spots to be successful, not failures. So I think this, what we did tonight, quite frankly, my opinion, was a waste of our time. I do not appreciate putting two members that have done a good job in a competition. And it's unfair for that gentleman to come in here. Because I'm sure he feels, which is human instinct, that he's walking into a losing situation.
If he didn't feel that coming in, he felt it leaving.
Well, so again, my vote is to keep the members, have the Board of Selectmen reappoint the two members that are up for reappointment.
Thank you.
Yeah, like when I joined, it was like, it wasn't like this. It was because somebody had stepped down. They didn't know if that was gonna work.
Right, and I'm just the kind of guy, and you can ask
I agree.
people that know me, you can ask people that have known me since I've gotten involved. I'm not afraid of confrontation or speaking my mind, and I speak the truth. And I think what we did here tonight and this policy of doing that is a waste of time.
It's kind of weird.
And it's insulting.
So at this point,
So congratulations if you get appointed.
Mike, I'm sorry, Mike, I appreciate everything you have just said. And I think the one thing that if we make some kind of motion to recommend our incumbents, I think we ought to include in that, because I was quite impressed by the gentleman's forthrightness and honesty and
Yeah.
interest. That a place be found that could utilize his talents, and that ought to be part of the motion that we
Oh, yeah.
make it, we make one tonight. I think he belongs somewhere.
let me see if I can get an answer to that. Excuse me. Assistant town planner, town
Administrator.
administrator. Is there a possibility of getting a alternate member status? Or some other way that if a member has to leave, a member that can step in that place?
I will have to get back to you.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question.
One moment, please. Yes, Carl.
The answer is no.
Oh, there
Wetlands
isn't.
Protection Act.
Be careful, you're still a candidate.
I'm not speaking as a commissioner, I'm speaking as someone who knows the Protection Act, and no, the Wetlands Protection Act does not allow for the appointment of alternates, as
Okay.
happens in other town boards.
Okay. So, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, it puts us in a tough position because, you know, you have somebody who's generally interested, just not a spot right now. So, thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Ben. Uh-oh, we had the opportunity to get out of here early.
Just want to push back a little bit on what Mike said. I agree with what he said. However, I believe in the principle that the incumbents should be challenged and that we should be open for new blood. And yes, there's no open position because all the incumbents want to stay. That ain't right.
There's some truth to that, yes. Just because an incumbent does want to stay, doesn't mean they're the best fit for it. But in this case, it seems like they are the best fit, so unfortunately.
Well, it's up for us to make a recommendation, but the choice really lies with the select.
Well, you know, you're right, Peter, on one hand. But like I said before, the chairman runs the committee. A strong chairman, just like a strong supervisor, knows his people. If he has a problem with people on the board, then you deal with it. It's as simple as that. I've had problems with members being on the board that were on the board for their self-interest. And I went and I approached the selectman at the time and clued him in on it and said, hey, when he's up for reappointment, here's what's going on. I got a guy handing out his business cards to people coming in. Okay? Inappropriate. So there are ways to handle it. I just believe, again, they want to serve. They like being on this committee. I do a lot of observing when everybody at this table talks. Not one of us here has self-agendas. Not one of us. And that is what we want here. Nobody here is on the board for self-serving purposes. If that happens, it'll be dealt with. I believe.
No, you're right. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion, unless, Terry, you have one
I
more.
I wanted to, not necessarily disagree with my dear friend and colleague to my left, but my position on this isn't, I'm just going with people who are here. My position is that I think we have two very capable people who have demonstrated knowledge and ability to chair meetings and do whatever Carl does when he's, not out in the field running around getting his feet wet. I think we have two very capable people. If I didn't, I wouldn't have gone with either of them. It's not a question of me thinking, well, they've been here a while, let's keep them here. It is, I think they are two very valuable members of this group. So I will move that we recommend the two incumbents to be reappointed by the select board, and also that encourage select board to find a productive committee assignment for the other gentleman who interviewed before us.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Do we want to make a motion on both of those things or one at a time?
Motion is both of them.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion passed. Any nays? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
I'll know Carl and Leah are abstaining.
There you go.
Sure.
I would assume.
I don't think we can vote.
Okay, great. So item agenda number 5, enforcement order for 5153 Washington Street.
I notified them that you want it done, the logs by the road done by the end of July. Jim is working on it. He was out a couple days this week. He's out there today, so we'll see if they make it, but he's kind of working with the weather, so I don't know.
It's good weather.
Has there been any,
Better,
any more discussion about what's gonna happen in the back?
No, so DeShang was out, so we couldn't meet with Mike Downey. So hoping to do that next week or the week after. But that was what I thought the consensus was, that we wanted to meet Mike out there.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm going to be unhappy if they miss the July 1st deadline because
July 31st.
July 31st deadline because the agent for the property owner refused to hire someone who could do the job in the time that we require, that we wrote up.
Any further discussion?
No, I agree with Carl, like they've had plenty of time.
Okay, so we'll table that until the 31st. Enforcement order on 2729 Pleasant Street, DEP number 218-0860 and 218-060861. Issue affidavit for compliance with enforcement order, successful pre-construction meeting on 7/21/26.
I'm recommending you issue the affidavit to lift the enforcement order. All the conditions in the EO were met. I had the pre-construction meeting with Ryan from Goddard, the wildlife biologist, and the project manager for DNF, Alfonso, on site, and we walked the erosion control line. We talked about where they're gonna store the permit and the site plans and dewatering locations and different things for the construction. They paid the fine and those sorts of things, and they did the turtle sweep. They didn't find any endangered species. They found a couple of frogs, but they moved those out, so.
Will they be enclosing the silt fencing and then have checking every time they open it? Because I think that was one of the conditions.
It wasn't in the conditions review, and because NHESP didn't require it, the wildlife biologist's opinion was that it wasn't necessary because they off on the vernal pool rather than the road. Right now they still have those trees because there's a couple trees and 2 driveways, so they didn't know how they would have a gate that would function. But I don't think they're against doing it if you want to require it.
Isabella, what did they do with the brush?
It hasn't moved because they couldn't work. They had to cease and desist.
Okay, so they put the silt fence in front of it?
Well, the wildlife biologist was there for the supervision of the installation, so they moved. I mean, I'm sure they moved what was in the path, but they didn't move any of the stuff on site in the area.
I don't understand. They didn't move it on site. It was all on site, so.
But they moved sufficiently to put the erosion control fence in. So there's a big pile of mulch there, but there's,
Wasn't mulched. The whole entire outline was brush, and that's where the silt fence had to go.
evidently
Then they moved enough to put the silt fence in. The silt fence is in, so.
Okay.
I feel like it might be too soon to take the enforcement order off. Maybe we let them get started and make sure they're doing things, instead of just taking it off and,
that's the enforcement order. They gotta do the work.
well, we can,
Would you allow them to do or not do? They gotta chip the brush. Right, that's their next.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think
Then
that
they can't chip the brush, right?
with the enforcement order is different than the cease and desist.
The enforcement order has to come off for them to work. We can always put a new one on if we find that they're doing something wrong.
Okay.
So in order to allow them to work, they've met their criteria of demand. So therefore, we have no reason to keep it on. Carl?
I had a question. By paying the fine, does that mean that he is not going to appeal? Is
Yeah.
that how it works? Okay,
Well, I mean, an enforcement order, you have 60 days to appeal, but they didn't appeal the ticket, no.
okay, so he could still appeal, but he paid the fine, so that's an indication, okay.
It's an admission of guilt?
No, it's that he paid the money. He's not admitting anything by paying the money.
No. Okay.
Then I would want a motion to issue an affidavit of compliance for the enforcement order.
Will that allow them to continue working? Does it remove the stop work?
Well, I said they could start work at the pre-construction meeting,
Okay. So-
but the requirements of the enforcement order were to pay the ticket and complete the steps for the pre-construction meeting.
I so move.
Second.
All right, so a motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Terry?
I said aye.
Okay, Leah?
I'm abstaining.
I'm abstaining. I missed 2 of them in meetings on.
Okay. I'm an aye, so the motion passes with 2 abstentions. Updates from the chair, conservation agent.
Continuing with enforcement orders, 8 Sandra Circle with Shane McCordy, he called me and he said that Land Planning Inc., so Bill Halsing is planning to submit the NOI for the second meeting in August. For that one, and then for 10 Butler Road, with Mike Jones. John Nienart's gonna have the final as-built next week, and then they have started installing the erosion controls at that site. And then we have 2 new NOIs, for the first meeting in August. So one's for the Shea Engineering building, replace the septic, and then another NOI on Oxford Road where the feeds and needs burnt down, so replacing that at the new construction. It's the same owners, so
Oh, that's awesome.
very similar building shape and size,
Is
but
it gonna be feeds and needs again?
I don't know.
They said they weren't gonna do it. but maybe
I know
it's
they
been
did say
some
that.
more.
It's at least the same owners and same
Oh,
square footage.
That's good.
The wetland scientists found some wetland fill in the back that they'll need to restore. We'll have site visits for those that week, and then I also got a complaint this week on 35 Hartford Ave East with the development at the Cahill lot. And it's been designed at the 200-foot riverfront area, so I've had a little bit of back and forth about the site. The did supply a site plan, which I can pull up and show. And they've started work on lot 1, which I'm not as concerned with. More concerned with lots 2 and 3, either requiring an ANRAD to confirm the delineation or notice of intents. But I was on site to see lot 1, and they were able to show that they're out of the 200-foot for that one. And so on the plan, you can see the river down on the bottom, and then the pink is the 100-foot riverfront area and 200-foot riverfront area, and then the wetlands are the green, and then the blue is the 100-foot buffer zone. So in my opinion, there will be lawn in lots 2 and 3, and that's degradation. So they need to establish the limit of work through an NOI. But I don't want to, or I have had conversations with DEP, and they agree with that there either needs to be an ANRAD and permanent monumentation through that they're out of the 200-foot, or they need to submit NOIs for 2 and 3, and NOIs are probably cheaper than ANRADs for the whole thing, but I've also sent an email to NHESP asking for their opinion, but I also wanted the commission's input.
I agree. I think that they're close. They're very close to the buffer.
So the red line is the 200-foot buffer,
200-foot riverfront
and
area.
this black is the erosion control
No, black is priority habitat.
for habitat. So where is the erosion control?
They haven't defined the limit of work on this plan.
Do you know the scale on that plan? Is it 20 feet to the inch, or is it 80 feet to the inch?
40,
Because the driveway looks pretty close to that
50.
priority habitat line.
Aren't they supposed to have the erosion control line on the notice of intent?
Well, they don't want to file. And I'm saying, I think they have to.
Gotcha. Well, they don't want to.
That's real close.
So I think what the agent is looking for from the board is to decide whether or not they want to
Or just the general sense if,
ask for an NOI on something that has these kind of questions attached to it.
I think if DEP says they should, they should. Either
What
it's
was the
an
second
NRAD or
option? One
an
option
NOI.
is ask them to file an NOI, right?
my recommendation is an NOI for lot 2 and lot 3. They could, if they want to stay out of it, they could do an ANRAD. So, because we have to confirm the delineation. Right now, we have not been out on site to confirm any delineations or received wetland. So they're having Goddard Consulting go out and put the flags back up. And they have a wetland report that they'll submit, but it really needs to, it should be through a public hearing process, especially when it's 4 houses.
I support that because as you said, It's going to be a question of how much of a backyard they have. How much of this is going to be lawn? And unless we take some action, the people who buy lot 2 and lot 3 are going to be in trouble with us in the next couple of years because the developer never told them, because the developer wasn't required to tell them. There was nothing on the deed.
Good point.
So riverfront area, you can only develop 10% of on a lot created after 1997. So the extent of lawn can only be 10% of the riverfront area. So, you know,
That could still be a lot though.
depending on how much is on the lot, yes.
And if they have to come and file an NOI, their engineer will have done those calculations. And that we will get to review those calculations.
So I'm looking for a recommendation from the members.
I say they get NOIs, so we have all the information.
I would leave it up to the applicant whether they file an ANRAD for the entire site, or whether they file individual NOIs. But the Concom does feel that we need to have a public hearing of some sort.
Yeah.
I think what I heard from the agent is they don't feel that they need to come in because they don't feel that they're in the 200-foot buffer.
At this point, we can't prove if they drive their equipment over the line or not.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name's, listening to your meeting, and I'm the one that had put in the inquiry, David Stewart. I abut the property for the Concom to look into the situation going on 33 and 35 Hartford Ave. So has any of the members walked the site, I'm wondering?
Not yet.
Well,
No.
in my opinion, you definitely need to, because I'm looking at material, quite a bit of material that's been piled up. It's still there, within 75 feet of what I would, my experience with construction would consider wetlands. And it's definitely within the 200-foot riverfront and beyond that. So I just think that the Concoms or somebody should walk the site and make that decision if I'm correct or not correct before you move on, because it's just what I've seen there. I can't believe that they didn't have to file, and I have no problem with them building the houses. But I just believe that their plans were inaccurate, and they're just taking upon themselves to just do whatever they would like and put the material, move dirt around. And I can personally, I have a video of a D6 that went beyond their property boundaries as I saw they were staked, encroaching the wetlands. I have a video of that, and I'd be more than happy to bring it in. The point is, it needs to be looked at. It's just, I can't believe it's gone that far. They're digging a cellar hole or whatever it is you're saying on lot 1, and I don't agree that that lot shouldn't be looked at either. And I don't even know if they have permits for that, but that's beside the point. The point is the Concom needs to visit the site and see what's really going on there, in my opinion. So that's what I have
Thank
to
you,
say.
Mrs. Stewart.
Excuse me?
Isabella, is that tomorrow?
Well, I was out on lot 1 today. I met David Tinio, the developer owner, and they had staked out the priority habitat and 200 riverfront line. So where the stockpile is on lot 1 was outside of the line they had marked, and they had installed erosion controls around the fill that was on site after I had asked. So within 24 hours, they did install erosion controls around the fill. So
So is that a cellar hole or the septic that you're witnessing on lot 1?
started the septic.
Started a septic. Again, from my experience again with how wetlands is determined is not just by riverfront and soil analysis, and I just don't agree that that's not within the boundaries of what's required as classified as a wetland. And at the least, they should go through the process. That's all I'm saying. It seems as though they just somehow just felt they could continue and didn't go through the process, and it's just not right. I've had to deal with it myself, and I went through processes, and I see a lot of other people around town that go through the process. So I don't know why it's being overlooked, in my opinion. Right down to lot 1.
This works. At least now we have a formal complaint that now we can act on.
Yep, that's all. I think it should be, like I said, walked by the members of the board, see what I see is going on, not to question your ability to look at it, Isabel, but I just see it different. And
We
I
didn't
am
have-
familiar with core samples, and I'm very familiar with the ecosystem in that area because I live on it, and maybe even a turtle sweep should be looked at. So.
Did you say Goddard is going to be doing something on the site?
Goddard is going out, Goddard Consulting, Tom Schutz is going out Monday or Tuesday to hang up flags. So at that point, when I'm notified, I can ask if the whole commission can go on site. But again, I have notified NHESP and asked for their opinion, and DEP's opinion agreed with me that NOIs or ANRADs for the site. So
If the project site management team doesn't come to us with paperwork, are we able to look at near map aerial photography and issue a stop work based on the aerial evidence?
well, what's the difference? You have a plan here with everything on it.
Well, because they just don't think that they need to file. Is there a way, how much
Well, all
more?
the resource areas that you would see on near map are on the plan.
Okay. So
Excuse me, but can you see the material that's stockpiled on the site? It's not on the plan.
Near map photographs for July are not out.
Okay.
So is this something that we should be thinking about a peer review for?
We haven't filed anything. You can't peer review it without a filing.
And how do we force them to file?
That's what I'm asking you for, if everyone agrees that we want them to file.
Can we
Let me see
make a
if I get
motion?
question.
I'll make a
I'm
motion.
looking for an opinion of the board. Do we want to have this site file an NOI or at least an RDA?
Yes.
We want them to file something, whether it's an ANRAD, NOI, RDA, that's at their discretion.
Okay. Leah,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Yes.
Carol?
I made the motion.
I'm not quite sure what the problem is.
The problem is the plan that is in front of us shows that they're microscopically close to the 200-foot buffer zone and
How did we get the plan?
through their engineer.
And why did he give us a plan?
Because Isabella asked for it because they didn't offer it.
Okay, so they gave us a plan, and what is their statement? What was their statement giving us the plan? That they believe they're not
Correct.
in the wetland.
Right. And now we have a
And-
participant
and-
saying that he disagrees with their opinion. And I understand that an engineer's stamp is on it and an engineer is
What, I'm
liable.
talking about the board. What, so the board requested a plan? Is that,
Not yet, but we are now.
so how did we wind up with the plan?
How do
I
you,
asked on Tuesday after receiving a complaint.
So the board did request. She's the
Yes.
board.
yes.
She's our representative,
Right,
so
that's what I
the
said.
board did ask for a plan,
Yes.
And we
an
got,
engineered plan.
and we got the 200-foot buffer, but we didn't get the wetlands delineated with the wetlands so that we could say, yes, that's the wetland. And we get a complaint saying there's work being done within 100 feet of the wetlands.
Okay,
We don't know that.
So then it's up to us to get an engineer to let the applicant know that we dispute your claim that you're not in the wetland.
Well,
And then we
Right,
send an
that's the peer
engineer.
review.
This ties in with what
What?
Isabella,
What?
this ties in with what Isabella said, Goddard Engineering.
That's what I'm trying to get.
they're
I don't know the
both-
background here. I missed the last two meetings, so I don't know.
This is
the
the
back-
first time we're hearing this. So Goddard's going to flag, and then Isabella will ask if we can, as a committee, do the site walk after they flag, and at that point, you would be able to go argue core samples, you can go argue ferns and see whether we agree with Goddard's flagging or not.
But you need to confirm the delineation through a filing. It can't be like, has to be through a filing. They have to file something.
Not if they're.
So that brings us-
In 100 foot of what they're claiming is the wetlands. If they go and hire someone to do the wetlands, and they're saying they're keeping 100 foot away from that, it's up to us to say, no, we don't agree. It's at that point, we can't really do that until we've seen where they're saying the wetlands are,
Which we will do next week.
which we will do next week.
So what Isabella's asking is, do we want to, as a board, to say, we need something that says you're not in the wetlands, or we need you to file?
What my motion was, we're asking them to file, we're not requiring it. And after we have a site walk, if we still cannot come to an agreement after the site walk, then we may change. We'd like you to we require that.
So a motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes with one abstention. So Isabella, you'll draft a letter?
We'll go out on the sidewalk. I'll send it to email to all of the people involved and then request that we go on the sidewalk to Goddard together
After they flagged it.
after it's reflagged, but they need to file for us to confirm the delineation.
Okay.
Excuse me, how do you, it's up to them to decide they want to file? Is that what I'm hearing? So in other words, if they don't do that, then that's the end of it?
No, it won't be the end of it. If the board thinks that they need to file and they choose not to, we have ways of making things happen.
All right, and the other thing I'll add, and then I appreciate you hearing my concerns, is that, a plan's one thing. A plan's drafted, it's on paper, but what's going on there now is not what's on that paper.
And that's what we're gonna find out. And that's why,
That's what, thank you, because that's what needs to happen.
after we get the ability to go on site and get a, NOI or whatnot, then if we don't agree with what we see, then we can have a independent, a peer review.
I think I can specifically answer his concern. If the property owner comes before us and is issued a permit, order of conditions, after they've made an application, part of the order of conditions authorizes the commission and our agent to go out with reasonable notice to go and inspect their work. So for example, if that happened and you saw something taking place on site that you thought was wrong, you would call Isabella up. Isabella would call the site management team and say, hey, I've got another complaint. I want a site visit. And they would be required to let Isabella conduct a site visit. If Isabella found something that they shouldn't be doing, then we would be able, as a commission, we'd be able to stop them from doing what they're not supposed to be doing.
Makes sense. I mean, go look at the conditions, and I think it's pretty clear that what's on that paper isn't what's happening. So, and having my construction background, what I do, I'm certain of it. Absolutely certain of it. So, appreciate you hearing my concerns, and I'll let you guys go home, and we'll see where it goes from here. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Any other discussion? Okay, I have a question. As far as North Street and Blackstone Street, any further movement on any of those?
No sidewalk set up or anything.
Are we,
You're saying the logging operations?
Did he not, like, did you ask and he didn't say anything, or it just hasn't come up?
I haven't asked since Carl asked during the meeting. I haven't really talked to Gary, just notified, talked to Jim.
just wanna know where we're going with that.
I'm willing to let it go another 2 weeks until we hear from Deshang on the Washington Street parcel.
Okay,
Harry knows that we're not going to drop it and we'll get to it eventually, so his ignoring it will not make it go away.
well, there's one other one, and I mentioned it, in passing. There's right outside of Needs and Feeds, there's that old auto mechanic shop. And, they've increased their car storage quite a bit, and I had a neighbor call me up and ask questions about it. So we may want to try and look into that a little closer. See whether or not the cars are leaking anything that there's a river right behind there. Or if they're encroaching on the 25-foot no disturb.
Well, even 100-foot buffer, right?
What address is that?
I'm not quite sure the address. It's right on Route 16, nowhere on Needs and Feeds. It was burnt down.
Oh, yeah.
The auto mechanic right there. It wasn't Loss. Trying to remember the name of it.
On the same side of the road?
Yeah, it's the next property from that. So it's a rental now, and they've really brought a bunch of cars in there, and now it's more of a junkyard than a repair shop.
Well, Mendon does have a junkyard bylaw, and if there are, even if it's outside the buffer zone, if there's a stormwater incident and people notice things running out of their parcel into the wetlands or the river or the lake area, then that is something we would take notice of.
So, like I said, I had a complaint levied to me, so I'm just passing it along.
Best evidence would be a picture during a rainstorm of a rainbow of oil sheen flowing out of their property towards the water.
I'll see if I can get that. Okay,
I would have a concern with cars parked within the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Well, that's something that we can determine easily.
well, you can't necessarily unless you get on the, I don't know if you can do it from an aerial photograph.
so something to think about. And now, land use.
Land use had a meeting, the only, they're encouraging the town to pursue, tax taking on a parcel on Pleasant Street. It's like 10 acres that would link up open space. So there's some monies required to, continue that process.
So that is going to go to special town meeting in November.
No, it's a small enough money that we can do the legal search to see, the advertising to see.
All you got?
Across the street, 127, I think.
Okay. Review and approve minutes from April 23rd, May 28th, June 11th, June 25th, and July 9th. Are they available?
I didn't get June 11th or June 25th.
I move that we approve the minutes for May 28th, 2026 and July 9th, 2026.
What about April 23rd?
May 28th too.
Oh.
Is that one here too? Okay, then add that one. Oh,
So would you repeat that?
right. Why, if the meeting on April 23rd was canceled, we don't have minutes for it.
I wrote the minutes to say it's still on the agenda got posted and then we canceled it, so I want something next to it. So that it doesn't look like it's
Okay,
missing.
If you think if you and the town clerk think it'll make the website look better, then I will move to have April 23rd, July 9th, and what was the other one?
May
May
28th.
28th, 2026.
Second.
What about June 11th?
I didn't get them done.
Oh, it's just here on the paper. Stuff that's not here. I'm looking for a second.
I seconded.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Same. Motion passes. Good and welfare for the commission.
have something. We'll decide whether I'm out of order for this or not. I was not able to speak before because I was sitting in the audience during the conversation about the interview process. My input is that another sign of Mendon growing from a 2,500 member community of 2,500 people to 6,500 is that we now have contested people for town volunteer positions. This hasn't happened before. I was the first one when I wanted to get on the FinCom, and there was not an existing FinCom member who was retiring. So I feel strongly that incumbents should be interviewed the same as everyone else. And my question for Mike, if he's willing to answer it, is what do you propose as an alternative?
I don't have an alternative. I don't believe there should be an alternative.
Okay,
Does that satisfy your curiosity?
it's not going to be helpful guidance for the select board, so I'm
Well, select board were put in place by the people of this community. The people of this community trust that those people know what they're doing.
Further discussion?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Wait a minute. Items not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Anybody?
we did that as part of your.
And
The motion's been made.
motion to adjourn.
Been made and seconded.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.